Good bar player.
I
Okay.
was very vocal.
Very
and
vocal.
I wanted to win.
This is Todd Lafredo. You're listening to Foosball Radio.
It's Foostalk live.
You talking to me?
Compelling and lively banter.
Are you going to talk to us?
Talking foosball.
Foosball was how I measured my value as a man. You took that away.
Players and fans, promoters and pros. Unedited and raw.
Talk.
Living in the moment.
We have a lot of important things to talk about.
All while practicing social distancing.
Cool. We'll talk. No big whoop.
Let's get this thing started. Foos Talk live. Coming to you live from the Foosball Radio studios. Hey there, I'm Tom Robinson, and I want to personally thank our Patreon pillars for their support of Foosball Radio and Foos Talk Live. Our thanks to James Sparky Castillo, David Kalla, Carl Fleischer, Jay Teal, Brian Schmidt, Cameron Burrows, Mike Green, Jimmy Love, Dwayne Stewart, Judy Schober, Jamie Kunst, Rob Cutler, Reed Rector, Clay Toomey, Adam Gilson, and Matt McCrory with our friends from the 716 Buffalo Foosball Club. Thank you. Your support brings continued and expanding content from Foosball Radio and Foos Talk Live as we cover the greatest sport on earth. Visit patreon.com/foosball radio to find out how to become a Foosball Radio patron. Learn about the exclusive benefits we offer you. Foos Talk Live is brought to you by Original Leonhardt. The Leonhardt Tournament model is the most popular foosball table at the ITSF World Cup. Designed and handcrafted in Germany, order online and have it delivered to your door. Visit www.original-leonhardt-usa.com and use promo code FoosTalk to save 10% off your purchase price. Unbelievable. Yes, it is the 149th episode of Foos Talk Live. Hey there, I'm Tom Robinson. We officially launched the month of March with our Hall of Fame series, which includes tonight some amazing Hall of Famers, people like Dave Gummison and Doug Furry and Ken Allwell. We've got a packed house here tonight, and I'm looking forward to that, of course. And naturally, to discuss the topic of foosball, it's always best when you have the world's greatest play-by-play foosball announcer of all time, which would be Jim Stevens. Hello, Jim.
Thank you, Tom. And it really is a special night, folks. As somebody who has been a part of this sport for well over 4 decades, who grew up in the 70s, and of course has seen the growth of the sport in different directions, different tables, different eras, different playing styles. Since then, it is a thrill for me, certainly tonight, to visit with 3 very special Hall of Fame guests. Of course, the great Ken Allwell, the great push kicker out of Minnesota. Dave Gummison, the multiple world champion, the Hall of Famer as well, the youngster of the 3. And then, of course, a man I had a chance to meet him one time in Las Vegas. He probably doesn't even remember, but certainly a man that is held in the highest esteem when you talk about the history of the sport. Doug Furry, who, of course, teamed with Jim Wiswell to form maybe the greatest team of the 70s and one of the very greatest teams in the history of the sport. And so it's really a thrill for me as a foosball historian, foosball fan, to be part of this very, very special episode of Foos Talk Live tonight.
Got to say, Jim, totally psyched about this. And naturally, we should also introduce someone who's more than likely going to be the first in reporting foosball news with a brand new show called Foos Week, and more than likely to be first at the Nacho Bar. That would be Adam Gilson well, he's from Ventura, California. Hello, Adam.
Hey there, everybody. Really, really happy to be here. I don't know if I would hardly say that's the first in reporting foosball. That's been going on for 40-something years now, 50 years now. But, it's in a different medium. It's on Twitch, and it's a lot of fun. And I could not be more eloquent than Jim just was about just laying out what it is that who we're chatting with tonight. And I think, and I'm reminded of when we had Dan Kaiser on here last year. Do you remember, Jim? He was like shocked when he walked into that tournament last year and people were like clamoring to know who he was.
Mhm.
And when we had them on here, like, I don't know if they understand the superstar status that they have within the
Right.
foosball community, even now. So I
Yeah.
am excited to hear their thoughts and hear everything else that we're going to be hearing tonight. I'm excited. If the
Well,
pre-show was any indication, we're in for a treat.
Nacho bar? What's with a nacho bar, though? I didn't.
this is
Oh, Apparently,
You
there
you
was
have to listen to Foos Talk, Foos Live, or Foos Week to find out, actually.
all three
But
I will
shows.
do that. Yeah.
No, there was just the nacho
Oh,
bar. Very food
mhm,
oriented. How about that? I think you know that,
okay.
Jim.
a
Yep,
nacho
of
bar.
course.
Come on, that's what
Mhm.
a concept at a foosball tournament. Of course.
It's like when Mark goes to a hotel these days, he looks at everybody and says, "That's not your bar. That's mine." And the drinks are on me,
I'm
right, Mark?
I'm feeling ethnically appropriated. Is this one of those Mexican things, Jim? Because if there was an HR here, your ass would be in a sling right now, brother. You can't keep dropping these Mexican jokes on me. Um, my turn to talk since I'm not going to get introduced by anybody.
Oh no, you just did.
I'm not much of a fanboy at all, right? Like I've been around
What?
celebrities before, and I don't even give it. Like I like Troy Aikman sat. We went. My company got the Grand Ole Opry, shut it down, bought the whole thing for an evening, and Troy Aikman was there. He was behind me, and I couldn't stand the dude. He was like one seat behind me, and all these people are crawling around me. I'm like, get me the hell away from this dude. And I was in an elevator with Isaiah Thomas one time, and I said, hey man, can you hit the seventh floor for me? Because I need to get. I don't care about celebrities, right? But like, you got Doug Furry here. I'm like, it's super cool. Right? It was like the foosball. It's like this only fandom I have any interest in. And I think I want to second something you guys said. I get into. I love like I'm a troll, right? For the NBA, I'm an NBA troll. I don't even like pro basketball. I feel badly because some people see these posts I do. They're anti-LeBron posts. But one thing keeps coming up is GOAT. Who are the greatest of all time? Who are the goats? And you get into these conversations about the greatest of all time for their era. So you start talking about Bill Russell, and you get into Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You get into these arguments that are so amazing about Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan and Larry Bird and where they fit in this game. And Doug Furry's always in that debate. It's always like when you talk about you like undeniably if there's a goat of that first prime exposure to foosball. Doug Furry is the goat of that era, and he enters into these conversations. He enters into the subjectivity when we talk about how that mental toughness. Because when we talk about skill and how skill evolves, we talk about mental toughness. There's the 1% winners. There's alpha predators in every sport, and Doug is that guy. So I'm super geeked to be talking to Doug Furry and Ken Elwell, of course, and Dave Gummison. But yeah, this is a Doug Furry day for me.
Yeah,
Wow.
but it's also a chance for us to look back on the Minnesota scene of the late 1970s.
Yeah.
Of course, we've
Mhm.
talked about it before, how the sport sort of migrated regionally, Texas, Pacific Northwest, Colorado, Florida, Minnesota. And of course, there was that great Nut Goody program, the high school program that all these great players came out of. We'll touch on that with these guys as well. But a look back at the Minnesota gang that really did come onto tour and carve a very, very deep niche into what at the time was a Pacific Northwest and
Yeah.
and Colorado, Texas sort of thing. Looking forward to that aspect of it as well.
We are extraordinarily lucky. And when we're talking about being a fan, I'm the ultimate fan when it comes to just standing back and just in awe of what I was actually checking out some matches yesterday, some matches from 81, from 95. I mean, some really extraordinary things. I just, I'm in awe. But that's neither here nor there. And actually, when that happens, when I'm in awe, I get thirsty.
Yeah.
What Jim and I like to do right about this time is to reveal our favorite IPA.
Well, Jim, look at that. A bottle tonight.
This is one of the legendary beers in the history of craft brewing. First originated in Temecula, California back in 1994, called the Blind Pig. And that was the name of the very
Pig.
first, or one of the very first microbreweries, brewery pubs in existence in the United States when things started to shift from the big brewers down to craft brewing. It didn't do real well, but the man who designed this beer moved up to the Russian River Brewing Company, one of the great breweries to this day in the United States. Pliny the Elder, maybe the best beer ever made, is brewed by them as well. This is Blind Pig. This has been brewed, as I said, for almost 30 years now. It's 6.5% alcohol, about 50 on the bitterness scale. But it's a legendary beer. You can kind of get a look at the label. That is indeed a Blind Pig. And let's have some.
Gonna pour it in a glass tonight too.
Mhm.
Last
Yeah.
week you drank out of the can.
I enjoy those tall cans. I got to tell you, I do. But tonight I'm drinking it out of my Steamworks glass
that.
here in Durango. And by the way, the garage is our local foosball palace here in Durango.
Oh, nice.
Just wanted to let you know it's not an actual garage, although at one point I think it was. But anyway, let's have some blind pig.
Down at the hatch.
Classic. Really good.
Wow. So, Adam, what have
Tom?
you?
Adam.
Yes. No, I'm going to cede my time to Tom because unfortunately I got caught up at a family event today and did not get to stop by and pick up my usual. And oh, you know what though? I will say, I did get to go to a local place on Friday called Topa Topa Brewery. Jim, I'm sure you've heard of that. It's one of the local places
Topa
around here.
Topa.
Yeah, and I had their hazy, their juicy IPA. Oh my gosh, it was delicious. I'm gonna find the name of that. I should have remembered that.
Topa Topa.
Yeah, but that was a wild night because there was a foosball table there made out of concrete that somebody made that works for BMW. That's a whole nother
Oh,
story.
cool place. I saw a picture of that.
Yeah, it's wild.
I thought
Tom?
that was a joke.
No, it's a 900-pound foosball table made of concrete. It's
Wow.
meant to be outside. But anyways, that's a whole nother story.
I'll cede my time to Tom too. I was doing
No.
tech support on myself to get this whole thing set up, and I didn't even get a chance to get a LaCroix.
No
Nobody has.
LaCroix tonight.
No,
Okay.
so
Nobody has.
it's all you, man. It's all you and your beer.
Well, when it comes down to it, we're sticking to the home front here. In Johnson City, New York. In fact, that's where my wife was raised, right outside of Binghamton, New York. We have an amazing IPA. This one is called Fresh Vibes. Fresh Vibes. Check out the label on that sucker. We're talking
Mhm.
some neon here. So Fresh Vibes. This one is a New England style IPA, which is 7.1 on the alcohol scale. Of
Mhm.
course, out of Johnson City from a place called Beer Tree Brew. Beer Tree Brew. And of course, we got to crack the old lid. And we're going to take a look and see what this looks like. Uh, that's actually a lighter yellow.
Mhm. No, it's got that New England sort of hazy look to it.
There you go.
Mhm.
Mm. Oh, we'll take that one every time.
I once worked a foosball tournament in Binghamton, New York.
Did you? Was it
Mhm.
during a
Sure did.
snowstorm by any chance?
No, it was fall, I believe. So, and Terry Moore was there competing.
Oh,
Lewis
wow.
Cartwright was there as well. 1995, I'm going to say.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
Mhm.
Those
that
guys were all homeless in '95.
They
I'll
were.
tell you, they had nowhere else to be except for a foosball tournament. 95.
well,
It's funny,
here's
Mark,
you
but it's
guys.
it's absolutely true.
It's
Yeah.
totally true.
Here's
Oh
you guys.
man.
Here's to the Hall of Fame month, which of course is the
Yeah.
first edition thereof tonight, episode number 149. Wow.
Yeah, we're about, what are we, 4 weeks out or so, 5 weeks out from the Hall of Fame Classic in Las Vegas, run by IFP. Going to be Inside Foos will be there. Adam will be there. Tom will be there. Mark, I would love for you to show up and
I'm going.
take it to the
I
bar.
got so my buddies from San Jose are. I'm probably going to do that thing I used to do where I came out for like 18 hours and I flew home at a twilight flight, belligerent. That's probably going to happen. So you
Yeah,
guys might see
that's
me.
always
I
a
might get
show.
kicked off the plane again. It
Cool.
might happen to you again.
That could be really dangerous, all of us there at the same time, and going live at the same time. That would be very interesting. But
Yeah.
again, we will keep our fingers crossed. So tonight we have a flashback, but this is a repeat. I know, because I really like it so much, but it does have relevance to tonight's episode.
With great moments in foosball history, this is a Foos Talk Live.
Dave Gummison setting it up. He'll fire this pull shot down the middle, probably on goal. Taking his time. Gummison chokes it down the middle and into the goal. It's 4-3. Big, long pull shot right there in the goalie area by Dave Gummison, and it's world championship point for Dave Gummison.
Dave's showing his talents from all around the table, and what a break right now,
Dave
Jim.
Gummison. Dave Gummison steals the ball. He has a timeout left. He sets it up. Pull shot position. I can almost guarantee you he'll use that timeout right here. Let's see. Looking over the defense. Dave Gummison executes the straight. And the 1995 World Singles Champion is Minneapolis, Minnesota's Dave Gummison. What a performance. Foosball at its best.
Without a doubt, Jim, he played fast, he played quick, he played consistent, he played tough,
He played every way you need to play to win a world title. Both players performed at a very, very high level, a very entertaining and educational match right there.
Listen in next time for another great moment in foosball history. It's Foos Talk Live.
That's a great moment. There's no doubt about that. And
Yeah.
of course, that leads us to our first guest this evening. Of course, Dave Gummison, Minnesota's finest. And Dave, welcome back to Foos Talk Live.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing? That was quite a moment in 1995, taking on Rob Morris, and wow, the last 2 points were spectacular.
Yeah, that was a lot. That was a fun match.
Yeah. Wow, so, what do you remember about that specifically?
Just how I don't know. The thing I remember most is just finally winning a world singles title and not really expecting it. I was there for doubles, and it was just sort of a bonus. So
okay.
I've always considered myself more of a doubles player, so winning singles was kind of a shock for me, but it was definitely a highlight.
Dave.
It's spectacular stuff.
It's fitting, Dave, that you scored a long pull shot for your fourth point there out of the net. It's also fitting you shot a straight on your match ball. I remember watching you. I've talked about this over and over and over. You were crushing people with your two bar that whole tournament, and even Lewis Cartwright, who was maybe in his peak form, said you wrecked him with your two bar. But I want to convert this to my question. I remember you going to that match and thinking, you're so hot in your two bar. You were my favorite to win, but you weren't necessarily everyone's favorite to win because Robbie was super hot in 95. And I think people thought he was going to win. The rollover was starting to really spike in people's, and in everyone's, success with it. Did you go into that finals believing you were the favorite to win that match?
I just tried to focus on one point at a time. I didn't really think in terms of if I was favored or not. I knew I could win the match. I'd already beaten him for winner of the winners bracket. So, I think I expected to win that match. Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people expected you to win going into the event. Back in 1995, we're talking about great players: Tommy Atkinson, Terry Moore, Todd Lafredo, etc. And maybe someone would have had you at about number 10, 8 or 10 as far as favorites going into it, because again, you weren't a guy that played a lot of singles. But that weekend, as I recall it, you were just out of your mind. You were just so focused, weren't thinking about what could happen, what did happen, just playing every ball, no expectations, just got on the table. And it was almost like when you won, it was almost like you were surprised that you had won. But truly, it remains one of the great performances of all time. But kind of address that. Were you kind of out of your mind, kind of just focusing on each ball and doing your thing?
Yeah, I just was really comfortable all weekend. I just got done playing a lot of singles against Don Swan because we were practicing for doubles. So we would play for 3-4 hours a day, just singles match after singles match. So I was actually more practiced for singles and doubles because that's how we prepared, just played against each other.
Right.
Speaking of singles, Dave, we just recently concluded the top 25 male singles players on the United States tour. And it was interesting to see where you put yourself on that. And
You didn't.
I know, right? Even though, you're one of the few, I mean, what is it? There's been 40 plus ish world championships in the United States. And I think the singles players, there's only been about 20 players plus or minus that have won that, right? That's approximately. So, Dave, I'm just curious, like that list and how it turned out, and looking at it in this perspective that you were one of the few that did that. How did you? What did you think about that?
I'm not a singles player. I'm still not a singles player. I just happen to be playing really good singles that weekend. Players that I think are just naturally like you got one on tonight, Doug Furry, one of the great singles players of all time. And the reason he's a great singles player is because he's super fluid all over the table. He can play goalie, he can play front. He's got a phenomenal transition game. He's smart. He does all the things that you need to do to be a successful singles player. So he's literally one of the only players, I think, besides Todd Lafredo, that's won a world doubles title playing goalie and forward. So that right tells you how good a singles player he's got to be.
Yeah, there's one other player in there that no, actually, Mares has not. Mares has won one. No, he's won doubles playing singles and
Yeah.
goalie.
I think Ryan
but
may have too.
yeah, Ryan Moore
Moore.
as well. Yeah, that's the other.
Yeah,
But you mentioned it, and we'll bring Doug on here in a minute. We also have the great Ken Allwell with us as we kind of look at Minnesota Foos. And before we get to introducing our next guest, Dave, talk a little bit about when you first came up. And I know you were a little later to the game than the other two guys are or were, but talk about the Minnesota scene back then and what it was like to be able to compete against the best players in the world. A lot of people playing at that time up in that neck of the woods. Talk a little bit about your early experiences up in Minnesota.
Well, I mean, I was super fortunate to actually grow up in Minnesota because I started playing at 13 in 1976. And so as soon as I started finding tournaments, my best friend at the time and I would go around and try to find all the tournaments. And when, it's kind of a cool thing when you're that age and you find out that the best players in the state are also the best players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, how motivating is that to find out that the people that you're watching play locally are also winning all the national tournaments? I got to watch players like Bells and Bednar and Allwell, Smiley, Wiswell, Furry. All those guys were all in like the top 10 players in the world at that time, winning all the big tournaments. So I got to watch them and kind of learn just from watching them play. It was a huge advantage, I think, to be able to pick stuff up from them.
Well, Dave, since you mentioned Ken's name and somebody that you looked up to when you first came up through the system, why don't we bring him on? Ken Allwell, welcome to Foostalk Live. Ken, you're returning to the show as well. Thanks for coming back,
guys.
Even though Mark is still here.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you hearing me or what?
Oh
yeah, we got you, Ken.
Oh,
We
yeah.
got you. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
You there?
Kenny, you okay?
Are you hearing those
we
sounds
got.
too?
I'm getting beeps and fees all over. Anyway, that was a nice. You know what's funny is Dave is only a few years younger than we are.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're talking about specific points, specific things going into matches, and it's funny. Doug and I, when we're talking general stuff. We don't really. It's not like we remember all those little details.
You remember a lot of details, dude.
Hey,
Maybe
you
not
know.
all, yeah, but I've heard you talk about specific points and scores on crap that happened in '74 or whatever the hell it was. So,
and most of the time, pretty accurately as well. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I give you more. I'll take your details over Bowers any day of the week. No disrespect to Mike Bowers, but I don't know if that's really disrespectful to Mike Bowers.
Well, because we got. I assume we still have Doug Furry somewhere in the wings. He's there, and I'm wondering. I've gotten used to, and I know Dave is used to hearing you guys talk foosball, do play-by-play, and all that stuff. I got used to it, Jimmy, because you started after I came back, right? But Dougie's never really heard it.
Really?
Play-by-play of the match and stuff, and I'm really curious what he thinks of it. I don't know when your plan is to bring him in.
Bring him in.
Yeah, let's bring him.
Let's bring him in now.
Yeah.
Doug Furry, thank you for joining Foostalk Live. Welcome to the show. And how's the weather where you are tonight?
Not too bad. We just got a couple of fresh inches tonight, but we're doing all right.
Okay.
Surviving for sure.
So you're in northern Minnesota tonight. So is it true that you weren't familiar with the play-by-play of Jim Stevens?
I'm pretty out of touch, Jim. I'll be honest.
That's
I haven't been part of. I haven't. Oh,
No.
yeah, I've been part.
I know.
40,
Is
35.
that you beeping again, Kenny?
That's not me this time.
I see.
It's a startup. His modem just keeps dropping, and the outskirts can't.
Yeah, Doug. I understand. You haven't heard our play-by-play, and that's understandable. You basically retired in the mid 1980s, and then as far as I know, you really have had very little of any connection to the sport since then. And hopefully, we can kind of get you in front of a TV and watch a little of that at some point. But have you had a chance at all to kind of look in on where the sport is these days, or where it's kind of gone since you retired back in the mid 80s?
Yeah, I've been kind of keeping track through Dave, but that really was my only source forever. In fact, after Jimmy's death, I kind of wanted to disconnect from everything. and start a family and try to move on, and now that I've kind of been finding out about what's going on lately, it's kind of fun for me to come back to it a little bit, a lot of reminiscing. I spent a lot of time with Dave and Kenny and Mike Belts, talking about the old days. It's pretty fun. But they're the only ones I can talk to, because nobody else I'm around has any idea what went down back there.
What did go down back there?
What did go down?
What went down back there?
That's a good general question.
No, everybody wants to know.
What happened in the 70s stays in the 70s.
Oh my gosh.
Oh wow! Welcome to the show, Doug Furry.
Yeah.
Are you
Riveting.
Doug? Are you Yeah, go ahead.
No, I got stories, but we can't share all of them. So
Well, look, one of the things we like to do, Doug, is there's people listening of all demographic types, skill set. I'm talking about kids who listen to this that are 17 years old that are aspiring foozers, and then everyone from that 70s Facebook page will listen to this. But here's my question for you: you were a apex predator in a sea of full-time foozers. We don't have that anymore. We've only had like 3 or 4 full-time foozers in the last 40 years. We're talking about a time when people practiced and played 12 hours a day, and for whatever it was, 3 or 4 years, whatever you guys did it. And you were by far the winningest person, the 1%er in that. How were you? What made you great? We were surrounded by all these people that are practicing their asses off. How did you rise above all of that? What was it? What made you different?
Well, I always tried to figure that out myself, but I do think that when you get put in situations where the pressure mounts, you either use that adrenaline to your advantage or it can ruin you. So, I mean, for some reason, I must have had what it took mentally to keep it together, I guess.
Yeah.
There was at least 30, 40 guys that were on the same exact level as far as their game goes. But yeah, that's how you handle
that's good. That is such a great answer. And there's a great answer. I want to seg that into, because I have 2 questions in my head that I don't care if anyone else asks a question tonight. It's got to be all about me tonight. So here's my question.
Wow. How's that different than any other night, Mark?
Here's my segue to that. I'm such a big fan of that answer. And here's my thesis is that if foosball would have evolved naturally, let's imagine in some alternate universe, everyone keeps playing, it grows, there's more full-time competitors for decades and decades, then we have a much different competitive outlook. There's all kinds of people that have not only because if you look at what has happened, our best or most successful foozers right now are all second-generation foozers. You got Frederic Collignon, his dad played foosball. You got Tony Spreedeman, both parents. You got Brandon Moreland, both parents. You got even the women, Midori and Sullivan Rue. You got even the new guys, Brandon Munoz. All their parents played foosball. And in a universe where people kept playing foosball from your era on, you basically negate that because it's not just parentage anymore. It's your proteges. It's the people you coach and develop. Okay, let me fast forward to the question. If 40 years, if foosball would have been able to evolve naturally, because I will give it, the skill set is great these days, but it's nowhere where it would have been if they'd been able to evolve for 40 years naturally. And all kinds of people would have the same level skill set. You just said that it was mental toughness. Well, I don't put words in your mouth. You said it's your ability to remain poised or composed under pressure because there was 40 people that had the same skill set as you. How do you think foosball? Here's I'm arriving at the question. 40 years later, how do you have an impression of how foosball would be different 40 years later if you guys would have all kept playing? What does foosball look like differently than it does now in your mind?
Well, it comes down to the kind of table you're playing on, and that's probably one of the reasons I decided to quit playing is because the Tornado table was so different than the tournament soccer, and I think it had run the course with me, the tournament soccer, and I didn't want to change my game. And like I was telling Dave, the one thing that I've always been troubled with is the size of the Tornado goal. I don't think it's fair to the goalie, and I think it makes the forward think he's better than he really is. Because you take an inch away out of that goal, and all of a sudden, the goalies are starting to look pretty damn good. So that's the one thing. And the fact that the bank shots were hard to do once back in the day. I don't know if they're better now, but that was a big part of tournament soccer. So
Yeah,
anyway,
bank shots have made a comeback. Certainly. Are you aware? Wiz and Fur, Doug Furry, those names have carried on up till today. You remain one of the true icons in the history of the sport. Maybe you can sense that from our reactions to you being on the show tonight. But it's and maybe your reputation has even grown over the years. But you remain, and I'm not sure aware of this. You really looked the other way. You went in different directions in the mid '80s. You mentioned about your partner Jimmy and what happened there, and then you played a few years, I know, on Dynamo before calling it a career. But are you aware of where you stand in the minds of foosball players, young and old? I mean, you go talk to that 17-year-old kid who was watching the show. He knows who Doug Furry is. Are you aware of
well,
your status in the sport?
I'm probably not aware of it, um, because if you're not involved with the tour or people on the tour, nobody in my life ever brings up foosball, except maybe my kids once in a while. But it's just not a part of my life. And then I hear something through Dave or Kenny or something, and then it's kind of flattering. But yeah, it's just kind of strange how, because of Jimmy's death, how we finished on such a bad note that it was kind of like something you just want to block out of your life. But it is strange to know here I am 40 years later and we're talking about it. So it's really cool. Yeah, I'm real flattered by it for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Adam?
When you talk about, and we talk about whatever we want to talk about. You don't have to answer this if you don't want, Doug, but
no, go ahead.
you talk about Jimmy's death, and I know a lot of people in foosball know that story and understand that, and you don't have to get anything personal, but like, it feels like there's some clarification that needs to be made because I don't know if we understand that was related to the collapse of tournament soccer, if that was a
Yeah.
personal thing, or where that lies.
Well,
Because I want his legacy to be understood. You know what I mean, Doug?
yep. I think I can sum that up real quickly. Jimmy came from a broken family, number one. And when times get tough, it's good to have family there. Everybody kind of knows that. But so when foosball was starting to show signs of being in trouble with tournament soccer, um, there was a lot of other things going on in Jimmy's life at the time, and at at the end of tournament soccer, I know Jimmy and I won a doubles tournament in LA, and we went out there with Kenny and Brent in a Volkswagen. I remember distinctly. And Jimmy and I won the tournament, and then that was the last tournament in tournament soccer. And then they reestablished after Jimmy's death, and they had the Chicago World Championships, which was officially the last tournament soccer tournament ever.
Yeah.
And Johnny Lott and I won that one. But what was hard is Jimmy and I dreamed of being the world champions one day, and I'll be damned, it happened. So at the time when tournament soccer went under, we kind of had established ourselves as one of the top teams, and we were on top of the mountain. And all of a sudden, the tour's over. They push you out the back of the bus, and you go tumbling down the street, and you have no idea what you're going to do with the rest of your life.
Mhm.
Well, I had parents and family to support me. I signed up for school and whatever, but he didn't see it quite that way. So, and we got in trouble with the IRS. It was
Yeah.
it was a shit show after a while, but
Yeah.
it's all part of learning in life. So,
Well, Doug, and I just a quick follow up. You occupy a part of foosball history that very few people can really speak to, especially at the level that you played at. In fact, nobody can speak to that except for you and Jim and maybe two other people, maybe. And I'm just curious. We look at this, and Mark, you've said this before. We look at that period through rose tinted glasses. You know, were you making a living? Was everybody making a living? That was your livelihood, a bunch of people's livelihoods? Like, was everybody doing that? Because everybody, I think we often look at that and think, there's a lot of people out there making money, winning Porsche Targas and all that.
yeah,
Was that the
yeah.
case?
Well, we were doing pretty good. I think we had probably won $20,000 a year for a couple of years.
In the mid
Go-
70s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
late 70s.
Okay.
And then tournament soccer, they screwed us out of some money towards the end there. So we were living on it, but we didn't have extra money by any means. But yeah, it's just a lot for a guy to absorb at age 19 and 20, that success. And I tell you what, it takes a while to climb out of that rut you fall into when you got to look for a new life, a new career. So yeah, it was an interesting time. It went from really, really good to really, really bad, but that's all right. It's just it's a learning experience. So
Yeah, we've talked with a number of players. We mentioned Dan Kaiser. We've talked with Kenny. We've talked with other players who competed during that era, and how crushing it was. And I was a young player at the time, and even out in Los Angeles, playing mostly just West Coast events. But when that happened, I vividly remember where I was when I heard about the crash, about what happened after the Chicago tournament. It was devastating to me as a young player, hoping to someday become a pro,
Yeah.
hoping following the tour. For that to happen, and then what happened immediately thereafter was this huge drop in prize money and prestige and everything else. And it was devastating for me. And I know, having talked to a number of players, including now yourself, it had to be just almost shocking to the system. You're one of the great athletes in the world in a sport that was successful, at least on the surface, as we looked at it then. To go from there to where really having to find a job, having to completely change your life,
yeah,
it had to be overwhelming. And I'm sure coming out the other side of it a few years later, you learned from it. It probably helped you. Certainly your playing days during the 70s probably taught you a lot about yourself, about life. And then to have it end that way, what did you take from that beyond the heartbreak of it all? You came out of it, I'm sure, a stronger person. Talk a little bit
yeah.
about what happened on the back end of that.
Well, what you realize is that you know getting into a situation like where you're making money and you're living a dream, you're just like, you can't believe it's happening to you. Um, so, and then you all of a sudden take all of that away completely. Um, it was very challenging to keep going. So it took a long time to get my act together, but I also learned that the best thing you can do is get busy when shit like that happens. You gotta keep going. You keep going. So, but yeah, it was quite a learning experience all the way around. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but um, life isn't easy all the time. So,
No.
right? We all know.
Yeah,
So Doug,
for sure.
we have a listener on Twitch TV where we're
Yeah.
broadcasting currently. Mike Green. Do you recognize the name Mike Green?
Oh man, here we go again. I don't. I apologize to him if I've met him.
He
I think
partnered up with
most of Mike's success came
You've never-
probably a little after
You
that.
never
He
lost it. I can tell you this: you've never lost to him. As a matter of fact, I don't think you ever broke a sweat against this
Oh,
guy.
help me. Big.
Speaking
We-
of not breaking sweats, there's Ken Allwell who has changed his shirt. Nice, Kenny.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
let's
Timeout.
So
time.
go ahead.
I
Go
want to
ahead,
call
Kenny.
for time. I
All right,
get
go
two
ahead.
timeouts
You get 2
per
timeouts.
show.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Okay? First thing, Dougie.
Yes, Ken.
That is really that to hear you talk
Yeah.
about Wiz like that really hit me.
Yeah.
That's why I popped back in here. I wanted
You
you to
choked
see
up.
me.
Yeah.
A little, but I'm also. It's not. I don't really feel like the loss as poignantly. I think I have more of an appreciation. We're older. We've been through a lot.
Right.
I wanted to illustrate one thing. You brought up the trip.
Yeah.
The
I'm
VW. Yeah.
VW, and there was foreshadowing because Jimmy slept
Yeah.
almost the whole way. But I
Yeah.
wanted to contrast that for a minute because one of the things, really, a lot of what we did was like joyous. We were kids,
Yeah.
and we were able to just take off. So the beginning of it, when the promise was there, and we hadn't climbed all the way to the top. Those trips we took out west were hilarious. and they were fun. And yes, things added up, and it ended up in a
Well,
really dark
it's an
place. But
example. Kenny, remember that Cadillac I bought for $400?
yeah, the one that went through more oil than gas.
Burned up five, quarts, 5 quarts of oil per tank full of gas, and
That was crazy.
we took
But it was
camping back
comfortable.
to Seattle and back to
Slept
LA,
4.
Yeah, yeah.
and
Oh, that thing was great compared to the
yeah,
Mustang 2 and the other cars we went in.
oh
We
yeah,
went in some
yeah.
pretty tiny vehicles for big boys.
I remember that trip as well. Yeah, knees up
So
against the chest.
I wanted to hit that on because it really, it was a big deal to have him.
Yeah, hey,
You
Kenny,
know?
I got a picture. I got a picture of from that trip when we stopped in Vegas for the night, or we stopped in to gamble,
I
and
know.
we got a picture of us standing outside the
He rat
casino.
hold of 20.
Yeah, somebody had 20.
Roosevelt rat hold of 20.
All of our
And that
pockets.
got us to LA. That got us to the tournament
Yeah,
where we could write checks.
but
But
back
we
then,
had our pockets hanging out.
well, there was no such thing as cell phones or credit cards.
No,
Mm-mm.
we were stuck.
It was
We gambled all they got every penny we had, and
yeah,
everybody looked to everybody else. Here's
and I
four
wonder.
20-year-olds in
Yeah,
Vegas.
I wonder why our parents worried, huh?
Oh, no shit. Oops.
Hilarious.
It wasn't
Oh,
me, that was Doug. Anyway, then the second thing on this thing of it collapsing. There really has been. There's this romanticized thing that we saw it coming. Plus, I was 24, and what was really cool for chicks at 18 and 19 and 20, telling them you played foosball, and everybody knew what it was. By the time you're 24 or 25, and they're thinking doctor, lawyer,
Mhm.
and you
Yeah,
gotta. At a certain point, I was looking. I knew I needed to get an education. I knew I couldn't
well,
like
hey
Torres.
Kenny.
You talk about foosball going on. I don't know how it could have really for us.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
Dave
met
Gummison. I haven't heard Dave Gummison say anything for a while. I know he's still here.
Dave is pretty tired tonight, so
It's hard to get a word in edgewise, Kenny, with you.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, with me.
Here we
It's
go.
Doug.
There
It's
we go.
Doug.
Started.
Hey Dave, you got the floor now.
Yeah, let's
No,
listen to
you were-
Mr. Gummison.
that car you got, Doug, did you say that when you filled it up with gas, it tripled in value?
Yeah, Dave.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And that was at 29 cents a gallon at the
He's been
time.
sitting there.
Yeah.
This is what Dave Gummison does. He learns from Furry. He's been
Or when it
sitting and waiting to tell that joke.
got out, people
Yeah.
ran up and
Well,
said, "Hey, are you okay?"
And I think, if you've seen the movie Foosballers, they talk a little bit about the whole hit the road with your buddies and hit tournaments, go
Yeah.
each weekend, go to tournaments. But during the 1970s, I had a chance to do it on the West Coast, going up to Oakland, Seattle, Portland, Reno. I got a little taste of it, and yeah, I could tell stories like this as well, and there are a lot of stories I couldn't tell. And we do romanticize it, Mark. We do, but it was romantic in retrospect. When not having any money is no fun. Not being able to eat is not fun. Breaking down, while you're traveling to a tournament, not fun. Sleeping in the car all weekend, all of these things not fun. But then you look back at them, right, as time goes by, and you realize how special that really was. Those days of hopping in the car with your friends and guys you would be competing against for pretty good money. I think, having talked again to a lot of guys who experienced that, that's one of the things. And I know, Kenny, you and I have had this conversation many times. That was one of the things that was so special about that era, right, Doug? Right, guys?
yeah, that all the memories of driving in the middle of nowhere and not knowing where you're going to eat or what's coming up. Yeah, it's a fun time in life. No responsibilities. It doesn't get any better.
Gotta do these physical maps.
It's fascinating though to hear. Let me see if I'm reading this correctly. It's fascinating to hear. I mean, I love the idea. These are wanderers and bohemian, whatever, just like nomadic. Okay, it's lovely. But are you telling me that even if the money persisted, like if the money not even grew incrementally, not that much. Let's not exaggerate. That your mid 20s, you would have been done anyway. You're like, I can't do this. I gotta
No,
like.
no. If
Okay.
tournament soccer would have been alive, and
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
circumstances would have been different. But for me, and I'm not saying this. I'm saying this because once you've achieved your goals and you're on top for a while, like I was,
Yeah.
I really did lose my hunger after a while.
Mm.
So that actually happened to me, where I got to the point where I didn't even enjoy playing. I didn't want to see a table.
Was it? Well, we want to correlate that to so after Jim dies, or is
Right.
that when Jimmy's still alive?
No, it's after Jimmy dies.
Okay,
and
yeah,
then
that makes sense. I understand that. Yeah,
a year later, tournament soccer is gone for good.
yeah,
And I looked at that and said, well, I made the best of it. Do I want to start over on a tour where there's no money and my partner's gone? Nah, I don't think
yeah.
so.
No, I get that. Yeah, no.
Oh, but I was in it for a long enough time, and I was in it at the perfect time. So
Mhm.
it started getting big in 74 and 5, and it peaked out in 81 or whatever. And I was fortunate enough to be around during that whole thing. So
Doug,
it
what
was
was it
amazing.
like?
You were the face of that era. You and Jim Wiswell are the face of that era. Ken Alwell is not the face of that era.
He's one of the secondary
face
faces.
He's got a red
broadcast.
shirt on,
God,
Mark.
that was good.
Rude.
No,
I love
and
you,
listen,
kid. I love
go
you.
ahead, Adam.
Doug,
Go ahead, Adam.
Let's be fair here. Kenny's one of the top few players that whole era.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just kidding. I love Ken Alwell.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
No,
He's
no,
giving
that's
him
all
crap.
right. I just really glad to be here tonight, you guys. I just can't figure out
No,
why
you're
I'm here.
No, you're not.
Because we
Adam, Adam's got a
couldn't get
question.
without you.
no,
Hey, Kenny. Hey, Kenny.
I,
I've never. Did I ever tell you that Volvo you sold me, the tranny went out right
and it
away?
fell out. I know. You started it up and put it in gear. Do you know why? Because I put oil in the transmission accidentally.
Thanks for
Accidentally.
I
telling
meant to tell you before. I meant to tell you before
So,
you.
Doug, this is some real passive aggressive shit. This sounds like it
Yeah.
happened in like
You think you could
77.
have done this in
Oh,
a
no,
text or
it
something?
was like 81.
I feel like this could have been an email.
Dougie,
Yeah,
these guys,
what?
they're trying to do a show. They're
No,
trying
I
to
don't.
do a show.
No.
This is great. This
This is the
perfect.
show. Listen,
Yeah.
listen to me. Let me just contextualize this. Every single person that plays foosball goes to foosball tournaments for two reasons. They love it. They love the competition. They're weird in their head, and they just like this kind of weird thing that foosball is. But they also love this. As much as we like to compete, we're just sitting around shooting the breeze, talking about foosball and remembering what happened, and
Yeah.
looking forward to the next time it's going to happen. And hearing you all talking about Doug. Wait, who screwed who over with the Volvo and the tranny?
Kenny screwed Doug over.
Screwed
Kenny,
Doug over.
yeah,
No,
okay.
you know
A
what?
sentence I never thought I'd ever say.
I didn't finish the story yet.
Oh, good.
Yes, it
Keep
goes.
going.
It gets better.
So
Yeah.
I go to a junkyard and buy a used tranny, right? And I don't know anything about cars.
Use tranny.
So I brought it to the
Meanwhile, the car's parked by my mom's house.
Yeah, well, probably was. That's what you deserve. But anyway, so,
Wow.
so I brought the tranny to the mechanic, and he said, "Well, this is missing some stuff. This isn't going to work." So I brought it back and dropped it on the doorstep of the salvage yard, and this guy called me up, and he was going to kill me.
Whoa.
I stopped payment on his check I wrote to him. So Kenny almost got me.
Yeah. Doug would not be here tonight if that guy had caught up with him.
Jeez, Doug. Ken Alwell. Good Lord.
Here I am sitting in California thinking that you've got this car. My mom kept saying, "Will you move your car? Will you please move your car?"
Oh, no.
I'm in California and you're supposed to take it and move it. I don't give me this excuse that the tranny fell out.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah,
I've always felt bad about that car.
You look broken up about it.
You look broken up. You look totally distraught about it. Doug, you do got a question.
Go ahead.
You do got a question from the chat, and it's Mike Green who's asking, who was your and Jim's toughest team to match up against?
Oh boy, we had our butts whooped by Lafredo once when he won the '77 World Title. But he made everybody look stupid that weekend. But Zeke was a tough one. There were so many tough ones until I came up with a push kick defense that worked good. I was getting torched by those guys really bad. But I'd have to say, Rick Martin and Kaiser and Kenny and Smiley and Brent and Mike and Bowers and Zeke and Crowell and on and on and on. There was so many. And then, I think who else was it? Tony Bacon was pretty good back then. Horton was he was an easy win.
Gotta clip that. Horton's gonna get this in a voicemail. But go ahead.
Waxed his ass so many times. It's not even funny.
Hilarious.
But yeah, people gave you trouble. But I'd have to say probably Lafredo and Zeke probably.
So, Doug, what was it in '77? Lost in Space. That was Lafredo and Jackson's team name, right? Why was he destroying everybody? What was it?
Well, boy, oh boy. He was doing a pass that I think was just becoming popular. Maybe I'm wrong, Kenny. You could, or Dave.
Did you guys? I didn't watch your match. I was actually. You guys played at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
You were playing winners and winners, and we were playing. I think we were playing Cockrell for 5th.
Yeah.
I saw. I knew it happened. I knew it went fast. But did Gil score on you guys?
There's nothing they did wrong. So everything
Gil lit us up as well. It wasn't just Todd. So his 5-0 was incredible, though.
But this new pass, you've talked about it, Kenny, and I think Gummy has made this pass. Why don't you talk about this pass, Kenny?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he did. I had never seen anybody. It was a double pump pass wall.
Hesitation wall pass.
Yeah, hesitation. It wasn't like Dave's. Dave does it where he kind of lifts the man off the ball. He would do it. It was like he grabbed the ball and just stuck it on his guide on the wall, and it was so fast. And he was also hitting. Was he hitting? I don't know if he was hitting a lane or hit anything he fucking wanted.
Anything he wanted.
It was just so fast. And then I remember watching him shoot. And Dougie, I don't know if you and Wiz switched. But Smiley would ask me where he went, and I didn't know. I didn't fucking know.
Yeah. Well, I'm just
it was
happy.
That fast.
I'm happy Lafredo.
Oops, I said another bad one. Sorry, guys. But Dougie, sorry.
That's right. You're not close to Trevor Park's record of 19 F-bombs in one interview on our show.
No, I'm just glad. I'm glad Todd was a little, I think, either real immature or young or wasn't focused back then. Because, if he would have stayed on that same wavelength or whatever he was doing that weekend, he would have won everything going forward. But,
he was.
That was one weekend. I don't know what happened to him after that. So.
Well, he went back. Yeah.
Dave, were you there? Were you there during that time? And do you know? So there's all the different theories of why Todd didn't win much after that. He won like a couple things. Ken, you've talked about it. Dave, do you know why Todd crushes everyone in '77 and then takes a break from really winning a lot until the '80s?
I think Doug already mentioned. I think it's just maturity. I think he was more into just maybe the scene, goofing around partially. I don't know. I mean,
Doug young.
Doug, yeah, he was very young. He was only 18.
17, yeah.
So, plus, I mean, it was hard to win back then over and over again. I mean, I don't think Todd was as mentally strong as some of the players that were a little older.
Right.
Yeah.
No experience.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, and it was tough in the 70s. I mean, you won as much as anybody. Kaiser, of course, you guys probably, when you look at it, were the two greatest players to come out of that decade, and it was reflected in our top 50 and in our top 25 greatest singles players. But nobody really dominated during that time period. There were a lot of players who could win and did win. So despite the fact that you maybe won 15% of the tournaments you played in, 20, that's still pretty much better than anyone else. And that again is a testament to just how difficult it was to play during that era.
Yeah, there was a lot more people that could take you out back then. That's what I'm assuming is the case. But yeah,
so when you and Kenny played against each other, and you, I'd like both of your opinions on this, and I'm guessing you probably know the record between you two in singles and doubles. How did that go between you guys?
I think it's about 20-1.
Was it?
Don't even. We're not even. You know what? I got owned. Hang on a second. I'm pulling out this thing, Dougie.
I let you beat me in a dryer.
Who wrote that? Who wrote that book? It depends on who wrote that book.
Yeah.
Who wrote it?
I don't even want to. You know what? Well, the deal is that we didn't play each other.
No.
except when we were like playing either for the finals or third. Like we didn't meet that, and we didn't play in. What?
Ken, you beat me in St. Louis, didn't you, when Todd won?
Yeah, we won. We beat you guys for third, then we beat you guys in Rochester for third.
Oh, I see.
Brent and I, we went. We didn't play in the ones like we lost to Bells and Bedmar at Super Doubles, the first one,
Yeah.
Smiley Night, and then I don't remember who put us out. But I know we didn't play you guys.
Yeah.
And we had Bowers and I played you a few times. But I was thinking more when we were talking about 70s stuff and the whys. One of the things that hit me was you played the majority of the time with Wiz.
Right.
Gummer, you played mostly with Tracy.
Yeah.
At a certain point, I know you played with Mose there for a while, and you played with Biney.
I think I made.
But it,
I made Doug quit.
Did you? There you go.
I played with him in '84 at the World Championships, and in the bar afterwards, we're sitting there all bummed out that we got 7th. And Doug says, "Oh, I feel like such a has-been." And I said, how do you think I feel?" And he started laughing, and he said, "That's true. You never were."
Ooh. And then we laughed. Yeah.
Hilarious.
Well, I remember the tournament where your defense changed, Dougie.
Yeah, that's
It was.
Huh? Yeah, that really changed my whole career, everything. So.
Hey, what are you talking about?
What? The 3-man D.
No, it wasn't just that. It was you went to. I don't know if you remember this in the same sequence. Doug and I have had a couple of arguments recently about what's true and what's not.
Of course,
don't always remember the same things. But
you're older than
when you went, I'm not. Dude, I'm like, what? Why does my age always come up? I'm the oldest person.
You're like Bowers.
I'm the oldest person. I'm not even.
You're like Bowers.
You and Bowers both got
dementia.
Dementia?
Is dementia Bauer? All right, hang on. You know what? I'm not sure that Mike listens to this. You have closed captioning in case he does. Anyway,
Bowers is drooling on himself right now. So
I know he's drooling on himself. Okay, Doug, your defense. Here's where your defense changed in Cleveland, Ohio, at a 50 grander, and I think it was shortly after you came back from Europe, wasn't it? England?
Boy, that's a good question. I really couldn't say when it was when I had
I know
that.
you were angry when you went over. You didn't like. You were lonesome. You didn't have a good time. Anyway, these are all things you told me. You said don't ever tell anybody, but I'm now told.
Oh, thanks, Ken.
You're
Anyway,
welcome. But I watched your defense. You played Spear and Bowers for winners or losers bracket. I was sitting there. Brent and I had won the winners bracket.
Where?
I was watching you. This was at Cleveland, 50K. Busy and I played in the finals in both open and mixed.
What's that? Did I win doubles there?
You guys, you double dipped us.
Yeah.
And it was
probably the
your
best
defense. I couldn't. You blocked Spear 18 times in a row. I counted. I was sitting there watching that match, and I was like, I got worried.
Yeah.
I went over and was practicing, but I'd always shot on the same D, and you were not just doing a 3-man D. You were standard racing too.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was really good.
Yeah.
And Brent and I, we went 10 games. So
that's
there you go.
How I beat Simon for the Porsche. I shut his push pick out, just totally shut him out with that defense, and that made all the difference. So,
yeah.
So Doug,
I was pretty pissy when I saw that D.
Doug, you're these are great stories, and this is fun, and I love it. But you're also talking about foosball at a high level.
What?
You're talking about foosball at a super high level, and you made these changes. Do you remember why you decided to change and do what you did to beat these players?
Well, because once you get scored on like 40 times in a row,
Is that?
you have to figure it out.
There's a loophole. That's the secret.
Yeah. So I started trying something new, and it really worked. And it worked good on Kenny and Belts and Simon. It shut every push kick out, completely shut them out. So
Yo, shut them out. Let's just say you went from 26% to 34%.
Enough to win.
Shut out.
But you know what, guys? Listen. As much as we romanticize the '70s, we also stigmatize you guys because you guys get a reputation for like cavemen rocking the table. Everything's a race, no finesse. You get a whole bunch of crap left on, and this is a great opportunity to talk about this. You know, we put the modern era of foosball prides itself on two passes that look the same, that go in different directions. That being able to shoot all the holes. How much has the sport evolved? And I assume a lot because you guys were playing full time and practicing full time, and you guys are growing and against each other. But demystify that for a little bit for us. How much of the modern technique translates to what you guys were doing back then is my question.
Go ahead, Kenny.
Well, the first thing I think of, Doug, is what I immediately did was analyze your defense. It worked, and it pissed me off, and I wasn't used to it, but I don't think we played again because we didn't play at Super Doubles, and I didn't go. They kind of that was late. So,
yeah.
So to answer your question, Mark, we would have adjusted.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, if we saw something, we adjusted to Lafredo. We adjusted when I was looking at Dougie's D, and I would have had to I had to look for tendencies and things. It was just,
the more you look at it, the worse it gets, though, Kenny.
I know, Doug. It was so confusing. I never would have figured it out. In 20 years, I never would have figured it out.
So
anyway.
Yeah.
Was there ever any thought of hopping in the Porsche that you won, sticking Kenny in the back seats, and hitting tournaments?
Maybe the
would have been a fun road trip. Maybe not for Kenny.
Really?
Not the car, the trunk for sure with Kenny, but
not much of a back seat there, was there?
Oh no, I actually drove the Porsche one time. I sold it right away because we needed the money, but I got to drive it right before the finals of Super Doubles the next year because the guy that bought my Porsche ended up being my sponsor, so he let me drive it right before I played the finals for the Corvette to give me the feeling of winning, he said. So, but that's the only time I did that. So crazy.
So the Nut Goody program in Minnesota back then, we've heard stories about it. How there were 10,000 players playing in Minnesota in high school in those days. Can you guys expand a little bit on and maybe fill us in a little more on the details of what that was all about?
Well, Kenny, did you play in that?
Yeah, but you tell your story, Doug. Yours is better.
Oh, well, Jimmy and I came down from up in the back country. And we thought we were unbeatable. I don't know if this was 10th grade or what. But we ran into Belts and Bednar, and they just totally waxed us. And then we came down again. Well, actually, they won 2 foosball tables, and we won a year's supply of nut goodies and salted nut rolls.
There's a prize.
Here, yeah. So that happened 2 tournaments in a row. They beat us, and then our senior year of high school, they wouldn't let us play because we had already won money. Because I went to Denver between 11th and 12th grade and took second in singles to Steve Simon, and Brenton Belts and Bednar took second in doubles to Kaiser and Kenny Rivera.
Wow.
So yeah, the Nut Goody was a pretty big tournament. It's pretty cool, actually. I don't know if there was 10,000 kids. That sounds a little high, but yeah, it was quite an event for sure. So I think it was held at a mall, a shopping mall or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was downtown at the mall on Nicollet Mall.
Oh, okay.
It's downtown.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's we wore farmer jeans and we both had hair down to our shoulders. So
Yeah.
we were looking pretty. We looked like we came crawl out of a cave or something, you know.
Doug, how old were you when you first touched a foosball table, and what kind of table was it?
It was a Deutschmeister, and it was probably ninth grade or 10th grade in the local hockey arena. They brought one in, and we were really getting into ping pong and you know that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of looking for a purpose in life, and then in comes a table, and we started laughing when we saw it. Like, what the hell is that? You know. But the next thing you know, we were hooked, and the rest is history. So.
Yeah, no kidding. And when did you believe or understand that you were going to be competitive as a player?
Oh, it didn't take long
Mm.
because we started winning the tournaments in northern Minnesota, and then we came down to the cities and played most of the good players. And then my first tour tournament I went to, I beat Bowers in singles. So I
Wow.
had a good feeling. Never for a minute thought I'd end up winning the world championship, of course. But anyway, it happened. So Yahoo.
Yahoo.
Kenny, when was the first time you saw Doug play foosball?
Cleveland, 1978.
No.
We won 10 games with them. What? I was Dougie. You know what? I would have a hard time remember. I have two things. One, I think Gummer can answer your question, Mr. Torres,
Yeah, but you'd have to
about.
wake 'em up.
Which
Are you
question?
there?
Which question, Ken?
About passing on knowledge, because Dave came along and he sort of had a different experience, because Doug and I were going to movies and we were going in and all the different bars and things. He started like he was playing in the mall, like the tournaments. I'll let him speak for himself, but and he would have, in order for him to learn from people in Minnesota, did somebody like sit with you and talk about inner game, Dave?
No, not specifically, but I used to just watch. I'd watch you. I'd watch Wizenfer. I'd watch all the better players, and then I would go home and try to practice what I watched. But in the question of was I think about the evolution of the 5 bar specifically. I think when they changed to a moving pass, which is after I started. So when I started playing, that was already implemented. But I think the 5 bar developed a lot faster once they started making you move the ball around. And I think by the late '70s, everything that they're doing now,
Yeah.
they were also doing back then. Like
Okay.
stick passes, brush passes, angle ups, bounce off the wall, all that stuff. There's nothing. There's not
No.
really too much doing now that they weren't doing back then. And the
No.
reason the 5 bar is so much faster now is because the way the table can laterally pass the ball between the men a lot faster. So the ball control is a lot easier to perform on a tornado because of the men are thicker, so you can tic tac it back and forth really fast. So you couldn't really do that on a tournament soccer. You had to be a little bit more deliberate. But they all the same passes. I remember when rush pass first came out. I think it was 78, somewhere 77, 78, where people started using the brush a lot more. And that changed, I think that changed the game a lot, the brush pass.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up a great point, Dave. Yeah, this is something we've talked about here before. During that era, you guys, and especially you, Kenny, especially you, Doug, and I'd love to hear your responses to this. And of course, Dave, you have the perspective of having played back then and having continued to play on through today. But that's when the American style of play was created. You guys were playing for money. You were playing every week. You were making notes. You were motivated to continue to evolve as players in order to compete against other players who were doing the same thing. And it very quickly created this American style of play. It then was handed on to the players in the 80s on Dynamo. And then, of course, Tornado players after that. And as you said, not a lot has changed. Little things have, but for the most part, it's still the same style. But the most interesting thing, and as somebody who has covered tournaments in more than 17 countries around the world, it's also the best way to play in Europe, in Asia. all around the world. The American style of play is still the preeminent style anywhere. It was handed down to Eastern Europe through the Inside Foods videos, where they got to watch one guy per country would buy a video from us and then share it with every other player in that country. But it was the American style of play that was created during the 1970s on the Tournament Soccer Tour. And Doug, I don't know if you're aware of this, but it is still to this day worldwide the best way to play the game. Percentages, taking your time, everything that you guys developed back then, and you guys had to create it. There was no template for you back then. You created this style. And Kenny and Dave in particular, I'd love to hear your responses to this, whether you agree or disagree. But I'm kind of letting Doug know that what you were doing back then is indeed still the best way to play today.
Yeah, I guess especially the 5-row. I look at the 3-row with this front toe shot, whatever it's called. I know back when we played a lot of freestyle too, where we were, weren't allowed to stop the ball on the 3-row either. So I do think a lot of players were a lot more well-rounded back then. My personal feeling is the tournament soccer tables, I thought they had way better ball control. You could flip that thing from front to back, and the ball didn't bounce as quick between the men, so it was a little easier to control some of that speed horizontally. But I think once I went to a tornado table, the fact that it was harder to pin the ball without losing it. It was super hard to bank the ball. So yeah, I thought the men in the ball were a lot harder, and that changed the game for me a lot too. So it's a matter of opinion, but everything they do nowadays, other than that front pin, although Dave, I don't know if you remember, but Kenny, Jim Zellick, do you remember him from Utah?
He
did the front
from Seattle.
He did the front pin kick, or I don't know.
He and Marzio got second to Bells and Mike in '76.
Yeah, that's other than that, I don't think anybody did that front pin much at all. So the 3-row is totally different now. So, and back then a lot of goalies dominated matches too. I don't know if that happens anymore, but
go ahead, Doug. And about the 5-bar, no, that's true. The tournament soccer had a different kind of ball control. You could pin it a lot easier.
Oh yeah.
The tornado is a lot harder to pin it, but you can move it laterally a lot faster without losing it on the tornado. So it's just, if you're used to using the pin to set passes, it's a lot harder to translate that onto the tornado than it would have been on the tournament soccer.
Right. Yeah, that's a willingness.
Dougie, hang on a sec, Doug.
A couple
of 60-year-olds just finished second at Worlds last year. Yeah, so listen.
No, Fredo took
listen.
Go ahead.
Listen, should we announce that we're going to come out of retirement for the next one?
You heard it here first.
You guys want to hear something scary? I want to have a question in mind, but just on that thought, it's so hilarious. My thesis is that the end of the TS era started an era of a complete lapse in the growth of foosball, and what's missing is the mental toughness did not translate well. The modern skill level, I will give it credit, is improved, but the mental. So I think that you guys could practice for a year or two and take fifth at least, because you guys would be under pressure than these monkeys with skill that have no mental fortitude to finish. Anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because it'll be really silly if we go down there. My question, I want to talk specifically
to make friends.
Yeah, I don't care if people hate me, and I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about a lot of the modern listeners.
For the record, I do hate you. Go ahead, Mark.
You should. Here's where my brain goes, and from what I can see, foosball has never been able to hold and maintain a viable, real national sponsor ever. I think you got Schlitz for like a year or two, and I don't know the backstory behind that. And I've done my own, and I don't want to talk too much about the stuff I've been doing because that's not what the show's about. But I've talked to investors about putting a lot of money in foosball, and there's all kinds of reasons. But one amongst the chief reasons is it's not an entertainment vehicle like other things are. A cornhole, way more fun to watch. people slapping each other, like just like putting powder on their hands and slapping each other. Way
I'll
better.
give you that it's simpler to watch. Yes.
Well, of course.
I'll argue that point until I'm red in the face, which I am already.
I've had foosball be compared with people by a lot of money, to competitive watchmaking. Like, let's put on like loops and make a watch. It's like that interesting to watch. Anyway,
you're the one selling it, and that's what they come up with. I blame you for that, Mark.
They do their own work and say, anyway, why Ken and Doug and even you, Dave, I have my own opinions. I've done my own research. Why can't foosball get and maintain, has never been able to get a national sponsor ever, except for Schlitz maybe, and maintain it for any duration? What is wrong with foosball?
I don't think it's a spectator sport. So.
Okay, agreed. Go ahead, Ken. Do you want to chime in, or Doug? Please keep talking. Or Dave, please.
Look at something like golf. Everybody plays golf, and then that's your spectators. So if you're looking, you need to get a lot of people playing foosball. It's not. Doug's right. It's not a spectator sport. You need.
Well, Doug. Sorry, Dave. I got to disagree. There's a lot of people who watch MMA that will never jump in the cage. There's a lot of people.
Sport. When you're comparing apples to oranges, there, Mark. What he is saying is that the spectatorship is from people who understand the game.
That's it, but not play it. That's different. Understanding it and playing it is different.
Playing it is in foosball is people who play the game are the ones that understand it, and so that does limit the spectatorship, because I think for them the product that we have created over the last 30 years has been entertaining. But if you're talking about the common man, it's a tougher sell, no doubt about it.
By miles. Ken, I want to hear what you have to say on this.
I have a lot to say on this one. First of all, what's wrong with foosball? Number one, did you listen to that little snippet, that 10-second snippet from Pink Floyd?
Of course I did. It's
It is your laugh. You got to play that. It's hilarious.
I did. It's hilarious.
Okay. It may not be a spectator sport, but I think if you like sports and you can understand what's happening because of what you're doing, Jimmy, if you had a decent color play-by-play guy ever in your time, you could have. I think you could get
plenty. You know that.
I think what you need though is it has to be more than simply a game of foosball. What I mean by that is it's got to be for something, whether it's probably more than just for money. Maybe a world title. Maybe I think what Fareed's done with the ITSF and the way the countries play against one another as teams like that, I think you've got a chance to make that spectatable, but not dragged out into like 3 out of 5 matches on multiple like that. Anyway, I think it could be.
The loser gets pushed.
We have the technology. What?
So like the loser gets pushed off a cliff.
Well, that would have meaning for you, wouldn't it? Did you watch The Menu? Did you see the movie The Menu?
More steak.
I will challenge you though, man, because Jim's done the World Cup more times than I know, and I had the opportunity to do it one time. And Fareed does an amazing show, and Fareed's a multimillionaire, and he's had people from all levels of demographic and resourcefulness and wealth, and it can't get it can't get a national sponsor either, and it can't maintain it. There's no one pumping money into foosball after 15 years. Right? Is it 15? No, it's not that long. It's like 10, 12 years since 2006, Jim. So I will challenge you that there's more to it. There's more to it than just it being spectator friendly. They make it very spectator friendly. Go ahead. I'm listening.
Something though, back to golf again. Is that an interesting sport to watch if you don't play?
Well, there's a lot more. Yes, the answer is yes. It absolutely is. Well, look, people will watch golf because they could see something. Yep. I mean, I'm
players unless Tiger Woods is playing. That's the only time. And you got to, Mark. You need to watch more World Cup. There were some fantastically entertaining for spectators World Cup matches where we had the time to build up drama, characters. It's all obviously all done in a very professional manner. Crowd reactions, replays, everything else, and it was very, very good very good spectator sport.
I think
for me, I love it. I mean, I am the guy who's trying to sell it. It was amazing for me, but I'm telling you that people who want to invest in foosball will challenge you and say the common person can't relate to it. It's too fast. It's way too. Foosball is more technical than any other sport I could imagine. I can think of a few things more technical than foosball. What's more technical than foosball?
Time out. Can we
Go.
mute?
Hey, that's your
Can we
second
mute
one.
Torres
That's your
for a
second
second?
one. That's your second one.
Shoot.
Yeah, that's
Is
your
that
second
really?
one.
Did I just? Oh, I don't. I
I'm
just. I
counting.
used
Hold on.
my
Let me
second
put my
timeout. Okay.
second.
All right.
Second.
This is my. I took a timeout from Mark because you got Doug on the show, and you may as well ask him.
I know.
As a guy who really doesn't watch foosball anymore, what would it take for you, Doug Furry, to watch people play football? Is he
Oh,
here?
yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I tell you what, if I had to watch that stupid front pin, I probably wouldn't watch any of it. So, and that takes care of most of foosball now, doesn't it?
About
I
half.
can't even. I'm trying to think of who we could watch.
Yeah, but I mean, but why though? Give us
Yeah,
the
Ryan
why.
Moore actually. Billy's,
No.
Billy and Ryan. Tony's got a great pull kick.
No. Doug
Whoa,
Furry
Adam,
just
I
spoke.
can't say.
No, why? What is it about the front pin that you don't like, Doug?
Well, not that I dislike the shot, because I mean it's obviously an amazing shot, but it seemed like back in the day, and here I am referring to the old days. But you had guys that were really good push kickers. You had pull shot people, pull kick people. Um, so to me, that would make it a lot more interesting to have a variety of shots. If everybody's shooting that front pin all the time, I don't know, and it's hard to see for the naked eye. If you don't know what's going on, you're like, "What the hell?"
Okay, Doug, I want to disarm your answer because I want you to continue to answer differently. If you're a common spectator who's never known foosball, you won't have that bias. So for the purposes of this conversation, let's imagine no one's shooting a front pin and you're seeing foosball for the first time. Why? What would appeal to you to watching foosball now, and you don't have a bias? There's no one shooting a front pin. How's that?
Would I still want to watch it? Is that part of your question?
Yeah. Honestly.
What I want to watch? I would be bored silly, but
Okay.
it's just because I've watched too much of it. But I'm trying to figure out which would attract me more as a spectator who knows nothing. That's a good question. I'm not sure if I have an answer, but
I also think watching sorry, but I think also watching it with commentary would change your view on it a little bit as well.
Yeah.
If you're a baseball fan, if you're a golf fan, the commentators bring a lot of insight into it.
Right.
The specifics of the game, obviously the dynamics, the drama, the characters, all of that. But especially for foosball fans, and you are one, despite not having played in 35 years.
Right.
I think watching it with commentary and hearing it broken down in that fashion, I think you probably would find it entertaining. I think to Mark's point, though, the common man is always the challenge. How can we appeal towards that to that non-foosball playing individual and get him to watch the sport?
I'm going to be honest with you, Jim and Dave. When you do your homework and you see who's merchandising and who's monetizing professional basketball, professional football, professional hockey, who's buying the jerseys, who's buying the food, who's sitting in the seats, it's not a bunch of people that are playing the sport.
Those are
Those are different. That's a different sport.
Well,
Okay,
that's
we're
what
not comparing it to that.
So you cannot get the common man to monetize foosball unless it's a spectator sport. And
There are 80
foosball-
million basketball fans. There are 80 to 200 million basketball fans around the world, and that's the challenge, I suppose. Mark, is what you're saying is we need more people playing foosball.
No, I don't. We don't need more people playing foosball. We could. I'm telling you right now, you could make millions of dollars off 10 people playing foosball if you could make it a spectator sport. But
No, you
that's
need
that's difficult. That's a
you need
difficult thing to do.
So golf, the casual golfer who doesn't really know that much about golf other than they go out and golf, they'll watch it on TV because they understand it. Foosball, if you get a huge player base of people that don't maybe play in tournaments but understand the game and play, that's the way to grow it.
Oh yeah.
Because then they'll understand it and they'll watch it because they've played it.
I think the sad reality about that, Dave, is that cannot responsibly happen in my lifetime. At the rate of retention of a foosball player, if you do the actual math, retention of a foosball player that starts when they're a kid, it is so low that I'll be in my 90s before we've quadrupled the population of foosers. I'm talking about going to 10,000 foosers competing in the U.S. I'll be dead. there's not really a return there. Ken, I know you want to talk. I'm listening. I'm going to mute myself. Look.
Yeah,
Fuck, you're depressing me, dude. I just went down. I'm down in the tank now.
And that's one of the guys marketing the sport.
There they
No, and as long as we have,
that's
I'm
really,
going back
really,
to my
really
Zen,
encouraging.
my Zen roots. You asked me when I met Doug Furry. I was trying to think when I met. It's easier with you guys that I know when I met each one of you. Adam tonight, Jim, 1992. Anyway, Dougie, I was thinking about it because I remember when you were going in to play for the Porsche, we were. I don't know if you recall, but I warmed up with you.
No,
So we knew each.
Kenny, I got to be honest. I got to come clean. At that point in my life, you were a nobody in my life. So I don't remember, Kenny. Did I?
Yeah, a second.
Kenny, I don't know if I warmed up with you. No, I can't remember.
Right.
All right.
Are we still friends?
So yeah, well, because honestly, you guys got started before I did. I didn't.
Right.
I wasn't. You are because Bell's taught me how to shoot a push kick after he took second in
Right.
'75. So I was. I know. I wasn't in the. I wasn't playing you guys for things. I was probably tagging on. And if I'd have known that you liked beer, I probably would have said, "Buy me a beer for."
No, I don't like it, way, but yeah, that's an inside joke, Kenny. But
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
So regardless, I was
No.
trying to think when we actually met in playing, and it was probably at Frenchman's, probably playing.
Yeah, I don't know, but I was going to make a point about spectator sport. I don't think for a minute that foosball is easy to watch as golf, basketball, football, hockey, any of them, because you can look from a distance, you can look on a TV. Foosball, it's hard to get a good view of what's happening. So that hurts too, I think.
Well, they've taken care of that, Dougie. They've got the angles now with these big screen TVs and cameras
Yeah.
and stuff, so you can follow it.
Well, it's easier to see somebody do a 3-point shot than it is to see them do a shot that's so fast you can't see what happened.
Right.
Well, yeah, and I don't think it's fair for us to compare
You
at
can't,
that level. What?
you can't compare them. They're all so different. And foosball's unique. Even ping pong you can watch easier and go, wow, you can stand 30 feet back and watch the game. So
I challenge you, Doug. Go on YouTube, watch one of our Inside Foos videos, and see if your opinion changes maybe a little bit on some of that.
Oh, I'm sure it will. Absolutely. Yeah, because I literally haven't watched any of it. So I mean that type. So
Oh, Doug, I'm going to bring something up here because I remember. Did you just say, "Oh no"?
No, I said,
no,
"Oh,
no."
Just
go.
be careful.
I'm not going to be. Look, there are stories that we could tell, but even Dave Gummison shouldn't hear some of these things. So when you, I remember I refed your match in the finals of Super Doubles.
Okay, I'll go with that.
The last one. Who was that you played? So you played the novice team, right? They beat Lori and Karen.
Who did I play? Super Doubles. Yeah, we played a team from Oklahoma or something.
Kurt Timmel and I forget his partner. Was it Kurt Timmel?
I can't remember. I remember they were just. They were so excited. They were just.
You see the points we had to spot those guys?
Yeah, it was nuts. So remember, so I'm getting this stuff whispered in my ear from above, and Billy Sumption is sitting 2 over from me. And you guys had a game plan, and I don't know if you can remember this, but I would imagine people would like to hear about it because I remember watching. You passed. Majority of your possessions, you passed.
Every possession.
And Sumption was like cheering you guys on. Anyway, and then I also remember that Cal Rogers would I don't think it was Cal that was. They had a little points committee, and they'd come down and whisper in my ear. And I remember thinking that the last one, I think you gave him 2 points in the drops.
Oh, we gave him 3 points and the drop.
It was nuts. And I remember I had to tell. I don't remember who was on the other end. Was it Lott or whatever? And we were like, oh my god.
Yeah, they scored.
How are they going to overcome this?
Yeah, they got the ball. They got the ball. They scored. It was 4-0 in like 15 seconds. So
nuts.
But we came back and made it 4-3, I think, and then they dropped it back to 2 points the fourth game, and then we beat them. So
yeah, that was crazy. But why did you pass? You want
oh, we developed a system of passing from the 2-rod to the 3-rod, and we must have completed 4 or 5 passes every game. We did it the whole tournament, in fact. And we used
Okay,
to.
I didn't know that. I thought you just did it. See, we didn't play it, so I didn't know that. I
No.
thought you were doing it in the finals. Okay.
Well, we would spend hours dribbling between my 2-rod and his 3-rod, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth for hours. So when the match started, if I stuck a pass, he was there. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. So if you can keep getting the ball to the guy who's got the opposing goalie so afraid he's crapping his pants, you're doing something right. So
I'd
you
like,
rem-
oh yeah. Oh, sorry, Doug.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I just want to move on to something a little less controversial. Not that that was too controversial, but I want to just talk about context. And I want to talk about what we do here on Foosball Radio and what we do here at Foostalk Live is we give context to the history of foosball. We've been talking a lot here for the last hour-ish plus about foosball and history, and we've been covering a lot of different names and people, 4 of which are actually with us right now chatting, which is just amazing to me. We're talking about geeking out and being nerds and fans about foosball, right? So what we did the year before last was myself, Mark Torres, Jim Stevens, and Dave Gummison got together, and we did a top 50 greatest players of the American Pro Tour, which I think was one of the most comprehensive, well-researched lists that exists. Probably the only one, honestly, right? I mean, it's just the only one. But I want to just tell you all, the people that are here, where you are on this list, because we paid attention. We kind of know the history when we're there. Jim was there more than myself and Mark, obviously, of course, Gummison, right? But Gil Jackson ends up at 36 on this. Ken Allwell, you're 35 on this list. And then we have Jim Wiswell at 17th. Dave Gummison, who would never, ever have voted for himself, but did. He's 16th on this. And then Doug, you are 4th on this list. And this is an exhaustive list that we did. And I'm just curious, like, we were talking about context and we're talking about this, and I know you've been out of it for so long, but like, does that resonate? Like, do you understand the influence, impact that you've even had on foosball?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably.
And how pissed do you think Ken is being in the 30s?
Mm-hmm. Oh, big time. You got to win something to get above higher than that, though.
Jim Stevens.
Kidding.
But
Bobby, was he the highest rated non-world champion? I think so.
Brad Anderson is geeking me.
Yeah. The thing about it, Doug, this list we put together, it was so challenging to do it. Comparing, eras, how do you do that? Babe Ruth versus Barry Bonds sort of thing. Comparing tables, comparing, the shortness of the careers of the 70s players, the length of the careers of Gummison, Lafredo, other players on the list, Tom Yore, who got on it because of their longevity. Incredibly difficult to do. And we, all 4 of us, it was just a huge challenge for us to be able to do this. And I think we all came out of it feeling pretty good about it. You did end up being the highest rated tournament soccer player on the list, with I think Kaiser coming in at 7th or 8th, being the next one. But your thoughts on this? And I know I'm assuming you and Kenny have talked about it. Maybe you and Dave have talked about it a little bit as well. I think you're probably aware of it. But your thoughts on trying to put together something like this?
Well, it's almost impossible to do it.
Yeah.
So, but coming from my perspective, I don't even know any of. I mean, I've met some of the guys, heard their names mentioned, but I haven't been around the game enough to even know any of these guys from the Tornado. I basically phased out after tournament soccer, so I know who was good back then, but I can't really say how they would compare to the people nowadays. It's almost impossible. But as far as what I would have to add, I really don't know what I would add. That's a tough thing to do.
No, the question is like, what is it like being fourth on that? I mean, because you're talking about over a 50-year span. Like, does that even register for you? We're all out here
Yeah,
looking at you, going like, "That's Doug freaking Furry."
yeah. Well, it's
Mhm.
weird looking through my eyes after, you know, being this guy for this long. It doesn't phase me that much. The only way I can see it is I know how all of the guys that I played with, how I would rank them, but I can't even begin to say how they would compare to these new guys. I just don't. So um, it's just a tough task, I think. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it was extremely tough.
Yeah.
We're talking with Doug Furry, with Ken Allwell, with Dave Gumison on Foostalk Live here on a Sunday evening as we begin to wind things down a little bit. You know, we've talked about your career in the '70s. We've talked about the highs and the lows of it. As you look back on that 5-6 year period, how much, Doug, has it influenced the rest of your life? How important was that period of time to you? How memorable was it? How much did you learn? How impactful was it to the man who now has become 60-plus-year-old Doug Furry?
Well, this is kind of off the kind of a diversion from the original topic, but for me, I grew up in a family where I wasn't my father or my family, there was nobody that ever played sports, ever in my family. So I was the only one to ever try to compete at anything. And, coming from a family where I grew up, and Kenny can relate to this, sometimes your parents, they don't set you up for a successful career or a life. They don't instill the confidence and for me to come out of a town like that, small town, and become the world champion. I remember when I won the Porsche, I called my dad. I ran to the payphone because that's what I had back then. I called him and I said, "See, I told you I could do it, Dad," because he came from a world of where he used to tell me, "You get a job, you get a chance, you take a job, and you be happy with it." Because he grew up in the Depression.
Yep.
So for me, coming out of a life of zero confidence and any really no guidance at all to just dive into that and become successful, coming from a guy who didn't have a lot of confidence in himself. So, and what it allowed me to do, a lot of people who love sports and competition aren't built for it. It's that simple. I couldn't run or jump very high, and I found something where I just need my hands. And there you go. I
Your
found
and your
I got,
mind, keep that in mind. Your brain, you're able
well,
to function under pressure.
yeah, that I can't explain. Um,
Mhm.
because I'm the one that experienced that, but you don't really realize where you fit in until you're forced to deal with the pressure. And when I did, I played better than I normally would, or the other guy just didn't handle the pressure. But yeah, the mental part of it is the hardest part, period.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what you're doing. When the pressure's on, if you can handle the pressure, you're in good shape. But if you can't, it'll rear its ugly face. I'll tell you what. So,
Well, Doug, that's your legacy for me. I knew who you were in 1983. I knew who you were. I know who you and Jim Wiswell were in '83 when I was a child, and
mhm.
and your legacy even back then was that you're the greatest prize fighting foozer at the time. You were the greatest prize fighting foozer. You won every major. Your mythos is that every single major event final you were in, you won. And I love the way this conversation started with you because you said there was 40 guys that had the same skill
Yeah,
set or equitable skill
yeah,
set. You were able to keep your poise and composure under pressure. And that's fascinating for me. And I love that answer. And I said that at the beginning because that's true in every single sport. That's
every
why Michael Jordan is a six-time champion and six in the finals because that guy
well,
can do it under pressure. Go ahead,
let
please.
me give you a sample of what I used to do. When I played goalie, in the big matches, um, we got pretty intensified. Jimmy, you never met my partner, but he was quite a handful for the opposing goalies. but when I played goalie, instead of hoping that your forward blocks their pass on the 5 row, if you sit there and you wish and you hope they get the ball, I remember uttering on the bottom of my voice saying, "Come on, get the ball, you son of a bitch. Come on. I dare you." So that way, when he got the ball, I was ready. I'm like, I've already prepared. And a lot of times they could feel the vibes. They could sense that they were in trouble because I was on their shit bad. But if you look at it like, God, I hope he blocks the pass. I don't want him to get the ball again. Then you're done. It's over. Game over. So it all comes down to that. You got to will yourself to win. You have to will yourself.
Well, you would have been great. You would have been a great champion as long as your physical ability would have kept up, and even beyond that, and until the younger guys that met your mental toughness, you would have continued to be a champion if you chose to do that. Sorry, Jim. Keep going.
No, I was just reflecting on, like you talked about, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, these players who just willed it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the impression. Yeah, I had a chance to watch you and Jimmy play at LA Opens a couple of times. You may remember me. I was that tall, skinny, long-haired guy standing at the end of the table. I'm sure you remember. But it was, if somebody said, "Hey, that's Wiz and Fur playing over there on table 3," and I walked over there and I watched it. And of course, Jimmy, the way he played was so intimidating, right?
Yeah.
This big guy would just spread out and just whip that pull shot, and you're like, "Whoa, this is badass stuff," right? And then you're back there, the scientist, just getting things done. It's really an intellectual, intelligent way, and just sort of willing your way to victory. But I'll never forget those days as someone who was a fledgling on the tour, as someone who felt like I was getting good, but was such a fan of the game and such a fan of you. And to this day, and I tell people this, that I brag about the fact that I got to see you guys play in person. I know, Kenny, you got to play against him. Dave, you were there as well. But I got to see Wiz and Fur play. I got to see you play in person. And as someone who has really dedicated my life to foosball for the 40 years since, that still remains to me one of the high marks is the fact I got to see you play in person.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it was fun. It was a good time. I wouldn't change it for anything. I remember back when I got out of high school, we left for the tour the day after we graduated, and all these people going to college, and you're going on tour, gee, and after it ended, of course, they were done with college and they were starting their careers, and so at that time, I'm like, yeah, now we have to face the music and go to school, whatever. But now that we're older, and I know for a fact everybody my age is looking back at what we did, Kenny and Dave and I, and they're thinking, man, I wish I could have done that, because the rest of my life has been go to work, same old shit, So we were lucky, really lucky.
Yeah.
Ken's got a shit-eating grin on his face. Ken, what do you want to say?
What's up, Kenny? What's on your mind?
I think there's and I know that Dave Gummison is going to understand how I feel about this. When I started playing, I was a groupie. And Dougie was one of my heroes, and Bells and Bednar, but there were a lot of older guys too, Dougie. We had guys that were down at Movies and stuff that we looked up to.
Ogelbacher and Daltus.
They were the gods. In my case, in order to do anything, I had to figure out a way to be competitive with them, it was a really high bar. And I think, I know that Wiz and I were rivals. We were friends. Doug, I always felt a little closer than just rivals. I felt like we were friends. Well, we were friends, but it is up until now. It's fine. It is a weird thing. Like Adam says, well, you came 35th. Well, I have my own story. I did my own thing. I obviously wish I would have won more of the bigger matches that I was in that didn't. But there is still this mystique that and even Bowers. I don't know, Dougie. I know you had it too with Bowers, where
he was my idol for sure.
he just the way he did things, the way he talked, the way
himself. He was the first professional back then. He always dressed.
He was. Yeah.
Yeah,
And imagine, like, he asked me. I remember we played down in Illinois, and I was like, didn't want to let him down when we ended up. I think we played you guys in the finals.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, he's the one I looked up to more than anything. You know.
Yeah. So no, I don't feel pissy about being 35th because there've been a lot of great players that played this game, and
yeah, that's really an honor because there's been a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm a little pissy that Gummison's ahead of me, but I'm not. I don't mind that Doug is. Dave, are you still there? I know you.
He's tired.
I'm here.
All right, hang in there, old guy.
I got to get up at 3:30 in the morning. My teeth are usually in the jar by now.
No, it's been an amazing couple hours here, guys. And I for one, and really appreciate Doug, you in particular, taking the time to come on the show tonight and talk a little foosball. I know you haven't spent a lot of time talking foosball in the last 40 years, but I know there are fans out there watching. I'm hearing from them. I'm seeing them on Twitch who are so appreciative of you taking the time to come on with us tonight.
Yeah. Well, I had a ball. I'll do it again, guys. Anytime I can help.
Yeah. Watch some foosball with commentary.
A monster.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'll help
He's
you
going to be a co-host before you know it.
No more softball questions if you come back, Furry.
No, that'll be it.
I'm ready.
Nice guy.
All right, Dougie.
They were fast pitch softball at least, weren't they?
Yeah, but speaking of non-softball questions, you were at the '81 Chicago tournament, Doug.
Yes.
What was that like when that hole hit the fan there and people weren't getting paid out?
Yeah, that was weird because we didn't play our finals till 3 a.m, the fourth day. So by the time we played, all the other divisions had finished the pool, the darts, all that, and they all took their prize money.
Oh,
so
yeah.
When we got done, the next morning, got up and tournament soccer had already left the hotel. So I got back to Minneapolis and I had one of the local TV channels at my house. And I remember saying that, I remember the radio person, a TV person saying, yeah, Doug was supposed to come home with a Ford EXP, but instead he's still got to drive this old Plymouth Scamp, and it had a big hole in it and shit, you know.
They knew
Lord.
They were saying that at that moment. Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So then Johnny Lott threatened to sue them because Atari was the main sponsor. So his lawyer called Atari's lawyer and said, listen, we're going to rake your name through the mud unless you pass. So Johnny and I each got a check for $8,500, I think, and then a bunch of people got stiffed. So they took care of us, but they screwed.
So you don't know where the money went, or like all that money that went missing was still nobody knows.
Oh, they gave it all out. They gave all the money out they took in, I'm sure, but they promised more prize money than they had, so they left town. I don't know how many people lost, but a lot of people lost their money for sure.
Yeah, I've met people that have checks framed hanging on their wall.
Nice.
That never were able to cash.
Well, tournament bucks, I think, is what they were.
Yeah, exactly. There was another name for them as well.
So,
but Kenny has no problem saying, but I'm not going
I'm innocent.
We have something called inside foos bucks. They're just as valuable. You're all gonna get 100 after the show.
Can't spend them. That's all.
So listen, if anybody has the results of that 1980 Los Angeles tournament, that last one, I'd like to see those. Just saying.
Why?
Why? He wants
Why?
to get he wants to get higher than 35th.
I've
I'm
only got
saying-
the top. I've only got the top 3, Kenny. You weren't in it. True story.
Wait a
by the
minute.
way.
Dang, what's going on here? Okay, for the record,
No,
you're one of my
that's a
favorite
third.
players. You're one of my favorite players for the record, okay?
Oh,
Just want you to
yeah.
know. All this
Thanks,
hate.
Ken
I don't know
Allwell
where it comes
was
from.
Ken Allwell was my first idol as a player. He was Ken
Amazing
Allwell, and
personal.
again, Kenny, I tease you. It's finishing 35th is amazing. You
I
know,
just want
and-
to see the Foos news. I don't care what you guys think.
Oh, look at him go. Look at him go.
Adam probably has that.
Yeah,
by the way.
it's over there in the
Mhm.
box.
Yeah,
Kenny,
I
you're the
looked it up
rock.
after last time after we talked, Kenny. I did look it up. I just haven't had a chance to fill you in on it until.
Well,
now.
Maloney told me he beat me for third in singles, so I was just curious.
Maloney?
He may have. Because I only have top 3.
So I got third.
No,
No,
you did not. That
All right,
was what he's
whatever.
saying.
Anyway, Dougie, was your team named Two Slugs and a Bug?
No. Kenny, you were one of my favorite players, Kenny.
Thanks, Dougie.
Yeah.
Wanted you to know that. And
You
Dave,
were one of my.
after Dave. Dave is
after
my
Dave.
Oh,
Wait, one of your
man.
favorite players after Dave.
Well,
that's
as
high
somebody
praise.
as somebody who finished 2,271st on that top 50 list, just ahead of Mark Torres, by the way, I fully respect that 35th place for you, Kenny. And again, you were my favorite player. You were my favorite TS.
Dude, I know we're ending the show like in minutes.
I
became the biggest Ken Allwell fan in '94. It was '94, right? It was '94 Worlds.
Yeah,
right.
94 Worlds.
I followed
Hey, you know
you.
what? I think I
Hey,
played Dave Gummison. I think I played Dave Gummison for Winners.
I
of
followed you
Losers.
around like such a horrible fanboy that I'd be embarrassed to admit it to my gangster friends who were with me at that
Hey.
tournament. While you destroyed the top players in the world in open mixed after studying them for
Guys,
like a year.
I really appreciate this stuff, you guys. I don't feel bad at all. I'm really excited that Doug took the time.
No, this is gonna
It's really-
come. It's gonna surface somehow.
Hey,
I'll
I
catch
just-
up with you tomorrow.
Hold on,
Mark.
I gotta wait. I gotta
Okay.
inject something here. So I just got a message from my mom and my dad,
Mhm.
Terry and Rosario Gilson, who were involved in tournament soccer back then.
Yeah.
And my mom says, "Great to see Furry," and then my dad says, "Doug sounds like such a better person than what we knew," which I think was
Oh,
that's not a slam. I think that he just knew
It's a
you.
slam.
No, I think that he knew
Yay.
you as the competitive type person, and
Oh, yeah.
no, but he was more on the running the tournament side of things.
right,
And then
right. And I,
so
Yeah, you were
yeah,
good tournament
I
side.
don't think he's saying you're a straight up dickhead or anything. He's and then my mom says yes, they were all snuffy buttheads. Oh wait, no, never mind. They called you a snuffy butthead.
yeah.
But and Ken, my mom says Ken was okay. So that's a well earned 35th.
Oh, what
Hey,
did how?
yeah.
This is
right
sad.
The ladies always like.
Sad.
Dougie.
Did you say the ladies always love me? Is that
Oh,
what
you
you
said-
Always love Kenny more than me.
Oh, good lord.
Oh yeah, Kenny.
Okay.
The women
What?
like Kenny, but I'm not sure why. But
Hey, Ken actually said to me like yesterday, I don't know how far I would have gotten without my looks. That's what he said to me. He said, he goes, I really made it in life because of my looks.
Yeah,
What?
yeah. He's a looker, man. Look at him.
No, Kenny was a whole lot more than a handsome gentleman, no doubt about
Okay,
it.
hang
Great-
on a
great
second.
player,
There's
great promoter.
no-
Jim is getting weird. Just
Um,
getting creepy. Getting real creepy, Jim. The whole push
Is
kick
Dave,
thing.
Dave's still here, or has Dave gone to bed?
I don't know. I hope he's passed out.
Dave.
Well,
tired.
It's
Anyway,
been a lot of fun looking back on Minnesota
Yeah.
foosball from that
Yeah.
era, and Doug, you in particular,
cool.
and Kenny and Dave, right? You're out there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm
But
here.
yeah, but I do appreciate you guys putting this together, and you know how much I love the history of the sport. I've really dedicated myself to illuminating the history as much as I possibly can, and I know we all have here on this show.
yeah.
And I think this is going to go down certainly as one of the best Foostalk live shows we've ever
Amazing.
done.
Oh yeah.
And again, we're running out of time a little bit here, guys.
Yeah.
But let's do this again. This was a lot
Yep.
of fun.
Doug, we're
Yep.
going to use your capital sparingly, but we're going to use it, my friend. We're going to make sure we don't overuse it, but I love talking to you. This is
Yeah,
great.
I'll help you guys out anytime I can.
Awesome.
Then if you
All
need
right.
any dose of reality in there or anything that just to make sure you're on the right track. Are we out of here?
Can I
We're
can I
out here.
extend, can I extend my heartfelt thanks first of all, Ken putting this together, and of course
Ken and Doug Furry, what a pleasure it is to get to know you, and of course,
Nice
Dave
to talk
Gummison,
to you guys.
you're the strength of this team. So, first of all, I just want to say this. I think I speak for everybody else when I say that uh, the game would not be what it is today were it not for the three of you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Agreed.
Appreciate
Agreed.
it. Getting on in life, you'd like to look back and think you did something right, but
Oh,
no.
we had idols. We gotta imitate you guys. That's the thing, you know.
Yeah.
Follow in your footsteps.
Yeah. I wish I could give you more insight, but we'll do it next time maybe. We'll
No,
get belts on.
it's gonna come back.
Cool.
So I remember we had Dan Kaiser on last year, and he texted me about a week later and said, "I'm remembering all kinds of stuff now. It got the foosball juices flowing. I think you're gonna
Yeah.
start remembering stuff. I really
Yeah.
do think you're
Yeah.
gonna wake up tomorrow thinking about foosball again. It's gonna be weird."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Doug, I'll tell you this as we sign off here: your championship spirit and your championship play and the mythos of how amazing you were at foosball has been pervasive and affected thousands of people, including me and my 5 gangster friends in San Jose. You guys were embedded in our consciousness as we were practicing 12 hours a day in our teens to play
man.
foosball.
That's
That's
awesome.
real.
Appreciate that.
100% true. 100%.
All right. Well, thank you guys. And we'll talk again
Thank
soon
you.
for sure.
You know,
Sounds
I can honestly say I never would have stuck with foosball as long as I had if I wouldn't got to see Wiz and Fur play.
Mhm.
So I would say that I'll hold that against Doug for the rest of his life.
I know.
Dave, you've gotten funnier over the years. You really have. It used to be about 30%. I think you're up to about 55% now. You throw him out there and
He's
and some of
good,
them
man.
work.
Dave's
Yeah.
good. He's good.
Mhm.
All right,
Yeah.
guys. Well, it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate all the nice things you said, and I'll would love to help you out on another show. That'd be fun.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank
Go watch
you.
some YouTube. Go watch some YouTube,
Okay.
Doug.
Don't
All
do
right.
it. Don't do it, Doug.
So,
Talk to you
Take
later.
care. Keep
so
up the
Doug's
hard
going to
work.
wake up tomorrow thinking about foosball. Dave Gummison's going to wake up tomorrow
Dougie.
morning wondering where his teeth are.
Wake up.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Okay, guys.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Talk soon. Take care.
Say good night. Okay.
Yep.
Night,
Love
Night,
boys.
Kenny.
you, Ken.
We'll
Mwah.
talk soon, Kenny.
Bye, boy.
All right.
All right.
There you
Well,
go, guys.
there you go. Wow.
That's
That's
awesome. Holy
extraordinary.
shit.
That's
Yeah.
that's a first, I think, for anyone,
Mm.
not just Foos Talk Live, but to have those three guys at the same time. Amazing.
Yeah. Our goal is to get all of the top 50 on the show, and we've certainly had some of the big guys. When you talk about Kaiser, you talk about Furry, Ken Allwell, of course, Dave Gummison. Really, really a special show tonight.
Jim, do you really want all the top 50?
All of them, every one of them, all in one show,
Mm.
all on one show.
Everybody all at
Like the
once.
Brady Bunch. Yeah.
I won't make that happen, of course.
Brady.
We want to give a shout out, of course, to those tuning in to Twitch TV tonight.
Yeah.
Bob Barnett, and of course, Donald Wilson tuned in, Mike Green, everybody who's jumped in to chime in on the chat. We really appreciate it. We would have acknowledged your chat more often, but these guys had a lot to say, so we do appreciate you tuning in. So, parting shots. Adam.
Oh, well, obviously that was a lot of history, a lot of stuff going on, but I just personally, my big takeaway was I felt bad for Kenny and Doug and having a tranny fall out of a Volkswagen.
Mhm.
It was a Volvo. It's a Volvo.
Who cares?
He
That's not the
called- he said
punchline.
something-
That's not the
whatever it was.
punchline,
He
Tom.
said something else.
I
though.
could have
It's
said a
hilarious.
pumpkin carriage.
He's like,
Anyways,
he
whatever,
said what-
Jim or
He said a dead tranny. He said
Yeah.
a dead tranny.
I know. That's the freaking joke. Thanks, Tom, Mark, whatever, Jim. I gotta go.
I stayed out of your way on that one.
I
Adam,
know you
I saw
did.
you working.
I know you
You know
did.
the-
I have a good feel for this stuff, unlike others.
I know.
He said dead tranny fell out of his trunk.
Yeah,
or
that's a good
something.
one, Mark. That's really good. Keep going with it.
Ah, dead tranny. Yeah, I'm gonna beat you. I'm gonna whoop your ass, Adam. I'm gonna beat the hell out of
With
you.
what? Are you
I'm
gonna get on a
beat the
chair
living
and look
shit
at me
out
in
of
my
you.
chest?
Can we get an official? I'll go with mine. Mark, you go ahead and go with your final take. If you...
Oh yes, look, man. I'm frankly I was flustered because I think it's so amazing to have Doug Furry on the show. I felt out of sorts with Doug Furry. You lost my video. I don't care. I felt out of sorts with Doug Furry on the show, and it's just I mean, everything I said, I meant. That guy has been a fixture in my foosball consciousness since I first started playing foosball. It's amazing, man. I think it's just a stud. I think it's amazing to have him. And the one I'll end on this parting thing because I think it really plays into something we talk about a lot. He said there was 40 people, all the same skill level, but he was able to keep his poise and composure under pressure.
Yep.
And I would tell you this: the probability is there were 40 people that had more skill than him, but he was able to keep his poise and composure under pressure. Because that's the way these things work.
And put in the work as well. Yep. And put in the work in preparation.
Yes, and that does not change from sport or era.
No.
And Doug Furry, that kind of mental toughness to be that 1%, I think there's so much to learn from that, so much to glean, and so much. It's not ultimately it's not about there's a skill level, a moderate skill level, and then there's what you can do under pressure. And I just love that, man. I love that. Anyway, that's why I love having Doug on the show, and I would love to do it again someday.
And you were also flustered because usually you're the biggest star on the show, and tonight it was him.
Weird. Weird.
Yeah. For me, it was I think more than anything, it was kind of the offhanded way he talked about his mental approach to the game and how he just, didn't even really understand why in the house. This is one of the greatest clutch players of all time. If we put our list together, the greatest clutch players in the history of foosball, he's right at the top, right? He's right up there with a couple other guys. But the way he said it in a disarming, almost self-deprecating way, in that Minnesota sort of way, was just awesome. And you could really see, whether he wanted you to or not, or whether he was conscious of what he was saying or doing, you could see what made this guy great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The humility, but also remember the mentality that he says that I wanted the forward who's going to shoot on me to get the ball. I was not afraid of the moment.
That's perfect.
I was not afraid of the moment. Bring the ball right now. I want you to have it.
I want you
love
to
that.
have it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's great.
I think that if we come up with the list of the top 15 goalies of all time, he's going to have to be right there.
Oh, he's right there. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, I got to say, what a great show! What a great honor it is to have all three of those gentlemen with us, and this is a Hall of Fame month, so we've got more coming. But more details to come here on Foostalk Live. Thank you for tuning in on Twitch TV tonight, and of course, we appreciate all your support from our Patreons to our sponsor. But thanks again for tuning into Foostalk Live. We'll catch you next week. Foosball tournaments are everywhere. Foostalk Live proudly presents a weekly update of events near you with the Foostalk Live Tournament Beat. Here's what's up. The Costa Rica Summer 2023 Beat Tournament, March 9th through 12th, Amapola Hotel, Costa Rica. The $11,000 Wisconsin State Championships, March 16th through the 19th at Mad Apple Billiards, Appleton, Wisconsin. Don't miss the $15,000 Oklahoma State Championships, March 24th through the 26th. Magoo's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Here comes the first annual Canadian Leonhardt Championship. March 31st through April 2nd, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. It's the IFP Hall of Fame Classic 2023, April 12th through the 16th at the Golden Nugget Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. Celebrate spring with the next 518 Foosball Smashdown. April 15th at Trick Shot Billiards and Wicked Eatery, Clifton Park, New York. The Masters Open Championship is April 27th through the 30th at Holiday Inn, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Florida. Don't miss the $10,000 Illinois State 10th Annual Foosball Championship, May 5th through the 7th. Poplar Creek Bowl, Higgins Road, Hoffman Estates, Illinois. It's the Bardo Hearns Celebration Foosball Tournament, August 17th through the 20th at the Kalahari Resort, Round Rock, Texas. Make your plans now for the 2023 Tornado Championships, August 30th through September 4th. Clarion Hotel, Lexington, Kentucky. Each week, we do our best to give you the most up-to-date listing of foosball tournaments near you. If you have an event you would like to add, send us all the details at info@foosballradio.com. Tune in every week for the Foostalk Live Tournament Beat. Foostalk Live is a product of Foosball Radio. With gratitude, we recognize our Foosball Radio Patreons. Our Foostalk Live sponsor, original-leonhardt-usa.com. And thanks to InsideFoos.com for use of their audio during the show. Tune in again next week for another episode of Foostalk Live. In the meantime,
we'll see you, Susan.